Thank you again for having me here. It's a great privilege to be here and to be part of your activities. This morning was a wonderful morning, and I applaud the organizing committee. Excellent exposure as well as to your capital and as well as to your work, the work that you're doing within the community, which is so great. What I've done today is they've asked me to talk about workforce immigration, health workforce immigration, and I'm happy to do that. But what I thought, and I asked your organizers first, whether it was okay to speak briefly about what is the World Medical Association. And basically, the World Medical Association, an international organization representing over 9 million physicians around the world. It's an organization made up of national medical associations, of which there are 95, and we hope to have more as time goes on. And so, why I say national medical associations is because that is the Constitution. Now, groups such as yours are ones that are very important groups, ones that we like to continue to build stronger bonds and collaboration with, are not true members of it, but are organizations with which we work very closely. It was founded in 1947 in Paris, and the reason it was founded was because it was a reaction to the atrocities which physicians were part of during the Second World War. And the reasoning there was that how could this happen, and why did not the rest of organized medicine in the world speak out against it? And so there was no formal organization of physicians in the world at that point that was truly international, and they came together. And so the basic starting of the World Medical Association was around a basis of ethics within medicine, how to define them, and not police them, but morally police them by saying, look, these are the standards which we all agree we should be adhering to, and to speak out against those who don't. And so that was the impetus for us getting together. Basically, the World Medical Association it acts on behalf of patients as well as for physicians. So it isn't just physician-focused. It has a dual purpose, physicians and patients. And we advocate for the highest possible standards of medicine and medical care, ethics, which was our basic reason to come together to begin with, education, both education within physicians as well as the public, and health-related human rights for all people. And that's exactly what Andre has been speaking of here, health human rights, a very important part. We have a General Assembly, meets once a year, Council that meets twice a year, similar sort of setup to yours, Executive Committee and Standing Committees. Our field of activities are ethical guidance, looking at policy making, not enforcing it, but saying to individual members and individual positions, this is what we as a collective think is reasonable. Advocacy and representation, which is something that is relatively new for us and new for you as well. And so we're journeying down that road together. And service and outreach, in a slightly different way than the excellent service and outreach that you have grasped and have been doing so well in the last 60 years. When it comes to ethical guidance, we have come up with a number of what we call major policy statements, which we, like you, call declarations. The very first one was the Declaration of Geneva, and that was the response to the Second World War, an international code of medical ethics. It's fairly well accepted. There are individual variations that certain countries make to it, but overall the basic tenets are the same. The Declaration of Helsinki is a very major declaration of the World Medical Association. And what that deals with is the guidance on research involved in human subjects. And up until this was initially adopted, we've now gone through 7 iterations of it, but the initial one was, what are the rights and responsibilities and roles of physicians, of pharmaceutical companies, and of patients? And until that time, it was a very open field. There was misuse of power and money and coercion that was going on in certain cases, certainly not all cases, but that was set down and continues to be a milestone for us. We continue to change it. In fact, I was at, we sponsored a couple of, our last couple of meetings was in changing the Declaration of Helsinki. One of the big question marks that we're still debating is to the wording of placebo-controlled trials. How can we ethically endorse or structure placebo-controlled trials if there, for example, is a known treatment out there that the patient, or not the patient, because they aren't patients, the people in the study, that the people in the study are being denied when they're given the placebo. So those are questions that I think we don't think of very often, but are important ones that we have to think about. And when I say patient, that the person in a trial isn't a patient, but is a subject of the trial, that also comes to the very important question about in trials. These are people, but they should not be your patient, because if they're your patient, your role is to advocate for the best possible treatment for your patient. If you're conducting a trial, you're trying, it's a much broader concept in which you're saying, is this new drug going to be better for patients and the population versus this individual? Now, you have a role to make sure the individual is not harmed by it, that they're aware of the potential harms and all of that, but they aren't your patient, because if they're your patient, you should be advocating for the best possible known treatment. It's a subtlety, but it's something that I think has to be very carefully articulated. Tokyo, Declaration of Tokyo, non-involvement in torture or degrading treatment. Seems like a very reasonable black and white sort of delineation. Of course, we shouldn't be involved in that. But there are countries that we know of, and certainly, unfortunately, torture and degrading treatment goes on. What's the role of the physician who has brought a patient who has been, a person who has been tortured? They bring you the patient to make them better when you know they're going to torture them again. Where's that? It's an ethical dilemma that you're often placed into in those situations. Lisbon, patients' rights. Ottawa, the right of children as patients, which has often been ignored and in many countries continues to be a major challenge. And most recently, just in 2009, the Declaration of Delhi on Health and Climate Change, which I'll speak about briefly on Friday. Policies.